Pesticides are valuable tools to manage pests that can impact human health or cause economic losses to homeowners and agricultural producers. Used properly, pesticides can manage pests without posing a risk to humans or the environment. Before a pesticide can be used, it must undergo registration processes at the federal and state level. During the registration process, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency conducts risk assessments to ensure that a product's intended use does not pose unacceptable risks to human health or the environment. Sometimes, because of risks to water, use restrictions are added to pesticide labeling that may limit use on or near water. We all know that clean water is essential for drinking, but North Dakota's rivers, lakes, and wetlands also serve as home to a variety of aquatic ecosystems. Production of many crops also depends on access to clean irrigation water. North Dakota leads the nation in the production of many commodities, most of which are grown in close proximity to surface water, including prairie potholes. Prairie potholes present a unique challenge to pesticide applicators who are required to comply with labeling restrictions related to surface water. The purpose of this video is to explore the types of surface water use restrictions found on pesticide labels. We will also help interpret some of these statements as they can be confusing. Almost all pesticides labeled for terrestrial agricultural uses contain the following language: "Do not apply directly to water, to areas where surface water is present, or to the intertidal areas below the mean high water mark." The standard "do not apply directly to water" statement on terrestrial pesticide labels is enforceable and straightforward. It means that the pesticide cannot be applied directly to surface water, regardless of the type of surface water. This includes rivers, lakes, wetlands, prairie potholes, sheet water after a heavy rain, and any other standing water. To comply with the language, an applicator must spray around surface water or shut off their boom as it travels over standing water. Many people question why this language is found on most agricultural pesticide labels. The answer relates to EPA's risk assessments, which are part of the registration process. Pesticide products intended to be applied to land undergo land-based risk assessments, which do not assess risk to water. There are many pesticides labeled for direct applications to water to control aquatic weeds, insects, and other pests. These products undergo different risk assessments to ensure the safety of aquatic ecosystems. The "do not apply directly to water" language can have significant regulatory implications. Failure to comply with this language puts you out of compliance with state and federal pesticide law, and it can also put you out of compliance with the Clean Water Act. Penalties for violating the Clean Water Act are quite high. In addition, the Clean Water Act allows for citizen lawsuits. Besides the "do not apply directly to water" statements, some pesticides have additional use restrictions around surface water because they pose higher risk to aquatic ecosystems or drinking water safety. Let's review some of these additional restrictions, particularly how the North Dakota Department of Agriculture interprets them. A variety of pesticide product labels use the term aquatic area when directing use restrictions near surface water. For example, the label for the fungicide Medallion WDG contains the following language: "Observe the following precautions when spraying in the vicinity of aquatic areas, such as lakes, reservoirs, rivers, permanent streams, marshes or natural ponds, estuaries, and commercial fish farm ponds." The label then lists several restrictions. So what is an aquatic area? In simplest terms, an aquatic area is any area containing standing water. However, note the word "permanent" in the statement immediately before streams, marshes or natural ponds, estuaries, and commercial fish farm ponds. Use of the word "permanent" adds an interesting qualifier. We would interpret the aquatic area restrictions to cover all permanent lakes, reservoirs, streams, and marshes. It would not cover temporary wetlands or sheet water. Let's look at another example. Pyrethroid insecticides can pose a risk to aquatic ecosystems. Therefore, their labels have use restrictions around surface water, but the term aquatic habitat instead of aquatic area. This language is found on many insecticide labels, including Warrior 2, a common pyrethroid used in North Dakota. The label includes use buffer restrictions near aquatic habitats, such as, but not limited to, lakes, reservoirs, rivers, permanent streams, marshes, natural ponds, estuaries, and commercial fish ponds. The buffer requirements range from 25 feet for ground application up to 450 feet for ultra-low volume aerial applications. Because pyrethroids bind to soil, which can move into aquatic ecosystems through soil erosion, the labels also require 10-foot vegetative filter strips around aquatic habitats. So what is an aquatic habitat? The department interprets this to mean a water body supporting an aquatic ecosystem. How do you know whether a water body is supporting an ecosystem? The best visual indicator of wetlands supporting an aquatic ecosystem is the presence of aquatic vegetation such as cattails, bulrushes, smartweeds, and other floating, submerged, or emergent plants found in semi-permanent or permanent wetlands. If aquatic vegetation is present, we consider that water body an aquatic habitat. Let's look at a few examples. This is the Cheyenne River. Obviously, this is a permanent stream that provides habitat for fish and other wildlife. Would it be considered an aquatic habitat? Yes, it would. This is a fairly large wetland surrounded by cattails and other types of aquatic vegetation. Would it be considered an aquatic habitat? Yes, it would. The wetland appears to be a permanent or semi-permanent wetland, and we would almost certainly find wildlife in it if we looked. In addition, the aquatic vegetation around the water body is an obvious indicator that it is an aquatic habitat. Now let's look at this example. It is a small body of standing water, most likely after a rain event. Is it an aquatic habitat? While there may be weeds growing in or near the water body, and an occasional bird may float or forage in it, there is no visible aquatic vegetation. Nor is there any indication that it is supporting any type of aquatic ecosystem. Therefore, we would not consider it to be an aquatic habitat, and users would not need to comply with the use restrictions found on the pyrethroid labeling. Note, however, that the user would still need to comply with the standard "Do not apply directly to water" if directed by product labeling. Here is another example. This is a typical small wetland found throughout the prairie pothole region. Is it an aquatic habitat? Again, we go back to our indicator of having emergent, floating, or submerged aquatic vegetation. We can see cattails and other types of aquatic vegetation around the wetland, and it is obvious that the wetland has been there long enough to support some aquatic life. Therefore, it would be considered to be an aquatic habitat, and the user would be required to comply with the relevant label restrictions. Let's discuss one last example of chemical-specific use restrictions found on pesticide labels. Pesticides containing the insecticide chlorpyrifos contain buffer restrictions around certain types of water bodies. For example, the label for the chlorpyrifos-containing product CPF has the following restrictions. For ground applications, do not apply within 25 feet of rivers, natural ponds, lakes, streams, reservoirs, marshes, estuaries, or commercial fish ponds. Since the label lists the types of water bodies covered and does not use terms such as aquatic area or aquatic habitat, we need to take the language at face value. The buffer requirements would apply to all rivers, ponds, lakes, streams, or wetlands, regardless of whether they are permanent or not, and regardless of whether they are supporting an aquatic ecosystem. As we have seen, pesticide labels contain a variety of label restrictions relating to surface water. These restrictions are in place to protect human health and aquatic ecosystems. Failure to comply with pesticide labels not only puts water quality at risk, but also puts the applicator out of compliance with state and federal laws and rules. Using pesticides in the prairie pothole region presents unique challenges. However, we are confident that with open communication and common sense regulation, we can find a way to manage pests without putting unreasonable restrictions on the agriculture community. The North Dakota Department of Agriculture's goal is to keep you in compliance with state and federal pesticide requirements and provide you with the pesticide-related information you need to be successful. Please contact us if you have any questions on how to interpret pesticide label language.